I was humiliated when my teacher read my phone's private texts out loud. So the next day, every phone in class buzzed with her secrets instead. My teacher, Mrs. Brennan, snatched my phone off my desk mid-text, her fingers closing around it before I could react. Let's see what's so important that you can't pay attention in my class. The room went silent. 28 pairs of eyes locked on me as she unlocked my screen. I'd stupidly left it open and started reading aloud. Oh, this is rich. Her voice dripped with false amusement. Quote, I can't stop looking at him. Every time he walks by my desk, I forget how to breathe. End quote. Laughter erupted. Not the kind where people are laughing with you, but the kind that makes you want to sink through the floor and keep going until you hit the earth's core. Who's the lucky boy? Mrs. Brennan asked, scanning the room like she was hunting prey. Is it someone in this class? I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My face burned and I stared at the desk, willing this moment to end. Oh wait, there's more. She scrolled with her thumb, enjoying this way too much. He smiled at me today and I literally forgot my locker combination. I'm pathetic. She looked up at me with mock sympathy. Sweetie, you're not pathetic. You're just dramatic. More laughter. Someone behind me whispered loud enough for everyone to hear that I was obsessed with guys. Another voice suggested a name. The wrong name, thank God. And half the class started making kissing noises. My best friend Zoe sat 2 rows over, her face twisted with anger. She mouthed, I'm so sorry, but there was nothing she could do. Nothing anyone could do except sit there and watch Mrs. Brennan turn my private moment into entertainment. All right. Mrs. Brennan finally tossed my phone back onto my desk. Maybe next time you'll pay attention instead of texting about boys during my lesson. She turned back to the board like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just violated my privacy and humiliated me in front of the entire class. I grabbed my phone and shoved it into my bag, my hands moving on autopilot while my mind screamed. The whispers continued for the rest of class. Every time I heard someone giggle, I knew they were talking about me. When the bell finally rang, I grabbed my stuff and rushed for the door, but not before I caught a glimpse of my actual crush, Noah, who sat 3 seats behind me, looking at me with what might have been pity or might have been secondhand embarrassment. Either way, I wanted to disappear. Zoe caught up with me in the hallway. That was completely out of line. I know. No, I mean illegal probably. She can't just read your private messages out loud. Well, she did. My voice came out flat. And now everyone knows I'm some desperate loser who can't function around guys. You're not a loser. Zoe grabbed my arm, stopping me mid-stride. She's a miserable witch who gets off on humiliating students because her own life is trash. I wanted to believe her, but all I could think about was Noah's face and the laughter and the way Mrs. Brennan had smirked while reading my most embarrassing thoughts to the whole room. The rest of the day passed in a blur of sympathetic looks and not so sympathetic snickers. By the time I got home, I'd received texts from people I barely knew, all asking who my mystery crush was or offering their own theories. That night, Zoe called. Come over, bring your laptop. Why? Because we're going to find out exactly who Mrs. Brennan really is. Her voice had that edge it got when she was planning something. And then we're going to make sure everyone else knows too. Zoe pulled up Mrs. Brennan's Facebook profile on her laptop while I sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, still feeling the sting of the afternoon. Her account's completely public. Zoe scrolled through the feed. Look at this, she posts like 5 times a day. The profile picture showed Mrs. Brennan at what looked like a wine tasting, her smile tight and forced. I leaned closer as Zoe clicked through her timeline, and within minutes, we found the first post that made us stop. Some students are just wastes of space. No amount of teaching can fix stupid. It was from 3 weeks ago. 14 reactions, mostly from people I didn't recognize. The comments were a mix of agreement and concern, but Mrs. Brennan had replied to each supportive comment with more venom. She can't post this, I said. She's literally talking about her students. Keep scrolling. Zoe's voice was grim. The next one was worse. A long rant about a parent-teacher conference where she'd apparently told a mother that her son would never amount to anything. She didn't use the kid's name, but she mentioned he wore a red jersey to school every day, and everyone knew that was Preston from the soccer team. This is insane. I grabbed my own laptop and started going through older posts. How has no one reported her? We spent the next hour diving deeper. Post after post revealed a pattern of cruelty masked as venting. She complained about her job constantly, calling teaching a dead-end career for people with no better options. She made fun of parents who questioned her methods. She even posted a photo of a student's test, name blurred out but still, with the caption, when you can't tell if they're trying or just illiterate. Zoe screenshotted everything, organizing them into a folder on her desktop. Look at this one from last month. The post read, came home to find my husband already passed out on the couch. 10 years of marriage and this is what I get. At least my wine doesn't ignore me. She hates her life, I said, and takes it out on everyone else. Zoe kept scrolling. Here's another one about students. This time she'd named names. Not full names, but enough that anyone at our school would know exactly who she meant. Tiffany C. asked the dumbest question today. I've explained photosynthesis 6 times and she still thinks plants eat dirt. Some kids shouldn't breed. My stomach turned. Tiffany Caldwell sat in the front row of our biology class. She was quiet, tried hard, and definitely didn't deserve to be mocked online by her teacher. We could show this to the principal, I suggested. We could. Zoe looked at me. Or we could do something better. Like what? She humiliated you in front of everyone. She made you feel small because she could. Zoe's jaw was set. I think she deserves to know how that feels. I thought about sitting in class tomorrow, knowing Mrs. Brennan would probably find some other way to make me the target. She'd probably make jokes about my text for weeks. The thought made something sharp twist in my chest. What are you thinking? Zoe pulled up a blank document. We make sure everyone sees who she really is. All these posts, the ones about students, about parents, about hating her job, we share them. How? Leave that to me. She started typing. But I need you to trust me. And I need you to be ready to follow through tomorrow. Follow through with what? She grabbed your phone once. She'll do it again if you give her the chance. Zoe looked up from her screen. And when she does, says we'll be ready. I didn't fully understand the plan yet, but I didn't care. The anger from the afternoon was still burning, and the posts we'd found had turned that anger into something colder, sharper. Mrs. Brennan had spent years treating students like punching bags for her miserable life. Maybe it was time someone punched back. We kept digging until past midnight. By the time I went home, Zoe had screenshots of over 40 posts, each one more damning than the last. Posts where Mrs. Brennan called students lazy, stupid, or hopeless. Posts where she complained about having to teach it all. A particularly brutal one where she said parents who couldn't afford tutors shouldn't expect their kids to succeed. "This is enough to get her fired," I said as Zoe walked me to the door. "Maybe, but that's not the point." She handed me a flash drive. "The point is making sure she feels exactly what you felt today. Exposed, humiliated, powerless." I took the drive and slipped it into my pocket. "What do I do tomorrow?" "Just leave your phone where she can see it. Act distracted, like you're texting." Zoe's smile was dangerous. "She won't be able to help herself. And when she grabs it, everything else happens automatically." "What everything else?" "You'll see." She opened the door. "Trust me." I walked home through the dark streets, turning the flash drive over in my pocket. Part of me wondered if we were going too far, if there was a line we were about to cross that we couldn't uncross. But then I remembered Mrs. Brennan's face as she read my text aloud, the smirk on her lips, the way she'd tossed my phone back like it was garbage. Whatever happened tomorrow, she'd earned it. Zoe met me at my locker before first period, her laptop bag slung over one shoulder. "You ready?" "I don't even know what I'm ready for." I opened my locker and grabbed my biology textbook. "You still haven't told me the actual plan." "Because if you knew, you'd look nervous, and we need you to look natural." She glanced down the hallway. "Just trust me. Keep your phone visible during class. Act like you're texting. She'll take the bait. And then what?" "Then justice." Zoe's smile was cold. "I've got everything set up. The second she grabs it, I'll trigger it." I wanted to ask more, but the warning bell rang and students started flooding toward their classrooms. Zoe squeezed my shoulder once before heading to her own class, leaving me standing there with my phone feeling like a loaded weapon in my pocket. Walking into biology felt different today. Yesterday I'd been the joke, the girl whose crush got exposed to the entire class. Today I was something else. I wasn't sure what yet, but the weight of the flash drive in my bag made me feel less like a victim. Mrs. Brennan was already at her desk, grading papers with that permanent frown she wore like armor. She didn't look up when I walked in, didn't acknowledge me at all. Like yesterday's humiliation had already been forgotten by her. Just another Tuesday in a job she apparently hated. I took my seat and pulled out my phone, setting it on the edge of my desk where she'd see it. My hands wanted to shake, but I forced them still, opening a blank note and pretending to type. Around me, other students filtered in, their voices low and their glances occasionally sliding my way. Some looked sympathetic, others still smirked. Noah walked in and took his usual seat 3 rows back. He didn't look at me, and I told myself that was fine. After yesterday, I'd probably never be able to look him in the eye again anyway. Class started with Mrs. Brennan launching into a lecture about cellular respiration without any greeting or warmth. Her voice was monotone, professional, completely detached. She could have been reading a grocery list for all the enthusiasm she showed. I kept my phone visible, occasionally glancing at it like I was waiting for a message. Mrs. Brennan's eyes flicked toward me twice during the first 10 minutes, her expression tightening each time she saw the phone. But she didn't say anything. Not yet. Zoe had texted me during passing period. "She'll wait until you're actually using it. Give her a reason." So halfway through the lecture, I picked up my phone and started typing for real, sending Zoe a message that just said, "Testing." Mrs. Brennan's voice didn't falter, but I saw her posture shift. Saw her attention sharpen on me even as she continued explaining the Krebs cycle. I sent another message, then another, each one completely pointless, just bait on a hook. "Excuse me," Mrs. Brennan's voice cut through the classroom. "Did I say phones were allowed during lecture?" I looked up, feigning surprise. "Sorry, I was just nothing." She walked toward my desk, her heels clicking on the linoleum. "Hand it over." "I wasn't doing anything wrong." "You're disrupting my class. Phone now." She held out her hand, palm up, expectant. Part of me wanted to refuse, to call her out for the hypocrisy of invading student privacy while posting terrible things online herself. But that wasn't the plan. The plan required me to play victim one more time. I handed her my phone. Mrs. Brennan took it with that same satisfied smirk from yesterday, like she'd won something. She unlocked it, I'd deliberately left it open again, and started scrolling through my messages with Zoe. The class watched in uncomfortable silence. A few people shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. But mostly everyone just stared, waiting to see if I'd be humiliated again. Mrs. Brennan's smirk faded slightly as she read. The messages between Zoe and me were completely boring on purpose. Homework questions, comments about a movie, nothing remotely embarrassing. This is what was so important? She looked at me with disdain. Discussing English homework during my biology class? I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it. She kept scrolling, determined to find something worth mocking. You students think rules don't apply to you, that you can just ignore teachers and do whatever you want. I said nothing. Just sat there while she violated my privacy again, her fingers swiping through my phone like she had every right. Maybe another public reading would help you remember to pay attention, Mrs. Brennan said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few students groaned in sympathy. Others leaned forward, hungry for drama. She opened my photo gallery, searching for ammunition. But Zoe and I had cleaned everything out last night, leaving only screenshots of homework assignments and a few pictures of my dog. Nothing personal, nothing she could weaponize. Mrs. Brennan's frustration showed in the tightness around her mouth. She'd expected another easy target, and I'd given her nothing. Well, she said finally, at least you learned something from yesterday's lesson. She handed my phone back, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She'd wanted to humiliate me again, and I denied her the satisfaction satisfaction. As she turned back toward the front of the classroom, I caught Zoe's eye through the window in the door. She was standing in the hallway, laptop open, one finger hovering over the keyboard. She mouthed, "Tomorrow," and disappeared. The rest of class dragged. Mrs. Brennan's lecture felt even more lifeless than usual, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Every time she turned to write on the board, I noticed how rigid her shoulders were, how her handwriting looked sharp and angry, even when writing something as simple as mitochondria. When the bell finally rang, I grabbed my stuff and headed for the door. Noah caught up with me in the hallway. "Hey," I stopped surprised. "Hey, yesterday was messed up." He adjusted his backpack. "What she did with your phone? That wasn't cool." "Yeah," I didn't know what else to say. "Just wanted you to know." He gave me a small smile and headed toward his next class, leaving me standing there wondering if maybe the text he'd seen hadn't completely destroyed my chances after all. Zoe found me at lunch, sliding into the seat across from me with her laptop bag. "Tomorrow's the day," she said quietly. "I've got everything ready. Email blast set up, printer queue loaded. All I need is for her to grab your phone one more time." What if she doesn't? She will. Zoe's certainty was absolute. She can't help herself. It's not about catching you doing something wrong. It's about power. And people like her always need to prove they have it. I picked up my sandwich. This is really going to ruin her life, isn't it? She's been ruining students' lives for years. Zoe leaned forward. "Those posts we found? They're just the ones she was dumb enough to make public. Imagine what she says in private. What she said about kids who couldn't defend themselves." She was right. Mrs. Brennan had shown us exactly who she was, over and over in her own words. We were just making sure everyone else saw it too. "Okay," I said. "Tomorrow." Zoe nodded and opened her laptop, showing me the files one more time. Screenshots organized by category. Posts about students, posts about parents, posts about hating her job, posts about her failing marriage. Each one time-stamped and saved with the original URL visible. "When she takes your phone tomorrow, I'll hit send. Every student's email, every phone number in the school directory that I could find, and directly to the classroom printer." Zoe's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "She wants to make examples of students? Fine. Let's make an example of her." I looked at the screenshots, at Mrs. Brennan's own words condemning her, at the cruelty she'd casually posted for the world to see, never thinking there'd be consequences. "Do it," I said. I walked into biology the next day with my phone in my pocket and Zoe positioned in the hallway outside with her laptop. Through the door's window, I could see her setting up at a desk someone had left in the corridor, opening her computer and pulling up the files we'd prepared. Mrs. Brennan was writing on the board when I entered, her back to the class. I took my seat and deliberately pulled out my phone, setting it on the corner of my desk where it would catch her eye. Not hidden, not subtle, just there. Around me, students filtered in and settled into their usual spots. Preston sat near the front, still wearing his red soccer jersey. Tiffany took her seat and opened her notebook, completely unaware that our teacher had mocked her online. Noah walked in and gave me a small nod before sitting down. The bell rang. Mrs. Brennan turned from the board and her eyes immediately locked onto my phone. "Really?" Her voice was sharp. "After yesterday, you still think it's appropriate to have your phone out during class?" I looked down at it like I'd forgotten it was there. "Sorry, I was just nothing." She walked toward my desk, her heels clicking with that same authoritative rhythm. Some students never learn. She reached for my phone and I let her take it, offering no resistance. Her fingers closed around it with that familiar sense of victory, like she'd caught me in some grand transgression, instead of just existing with a phone on my desk. "Let's see what's so important today." Mrs. Brennan unlocked the screen and I saw Zoe shift outside in the hallway, her fingers moving to her keyboard. The classroom went quiet. Everyone watched, probably expecting another humiliation. Another private message read aloud for entertainment. A few people looked sympathetic. Others looked eager for drama. Mrs. Brennan scrolled through my recent messages with Zoe, her expression shifting from smug to confused. The messages were deliberately boring again, just small talk about homework and weekend plans. Nothing remotely embarrassing. More riveting conversation about English class, Mrs. Brennan said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm so glad this was worth interrupting my lesson." She kept scrolling, searching for something worth weaponizing. I sat perfectly still, watching her violate my privacy again while pretending she had every right to do it. "You know what your problem is?" Mrs. Brennan looked at me over the top of my phone. "You think rules don't apply to you, that you're special somehow." "I don't think that." "Yes, you do. All of you do." She gestured at the class with my phone still in her hand. "You think just because you're young you can do whatever you want without consequences. Well, real life doesn't work that way." The irony of her words would have been funny if they weren't so infuriating. She was literally holding my phone hostage, reading through my private conversations while lecturing me about consequences. Through the window, I saw Zoe's finger hover over her keyboard. She was waiting for my signal, a small nod that would tell her Mrs. Brennan had taken the bait completely. But I didn't need to signal. Mrs. Brennan was already too deep in, scrolling through my photos now, looking for anything she could use. The power trip was too intoxicating for her to stop. "Nothing here either," she muttered, almost disappointed. "Maybe you actually learned something after all." She was about to hand my phone back when her own phone buzzed on her desk. She glanced at it, then back at my screen, then seemed to make a decision to keep searching. Just a few more seconds, just a little more time to prove she was in control. That's when Zoe hit send. I didn't see her do it, but I knew the moment it happened because phones all over the classroom started buzzing simultaneously. Not just one or two, every single phone. The sound was like a swarm of mechanical bees, all going off at once in a chorus of notifications. Mrs. Brennan's head snapped up. "What is that?" Students started reaching for their phones, pulling them out to check the sudden influx of messages. I watched their faces change as they opened the emails. Confusion turning to shock, turning to something that looked like dawning realization. "Oh my God," someone whispered from the back row. Mrs. Brennan still held my phone, but her attention was now locked on the students around her who were all staring at their screens with wide eyes. "Put those away. Everyone. Phones away right now." But no one listened. More phones buzzed. More students pulled out their devices. The whispers started spreading like wildfire. "Did you see this? Is this real? She actually posted this?" Mrs. Brennan's face went from annoyed to concerned. "What are you all looking at?" Preston held up his phone, his his expression hurt and angry. You called me stupid. By name. On Facebook. What? Mrs. Brennan's voice went tight. I never. You said the kid in the red jersey would never amount to anything. Preston's voice shook. Everyone knows that's me. Tiffany stood up, her phone clutched in her hand. You made fun of me for asking a question. You said I shouldn't breed. The classroom erupted in overlapping voices. Students calling out the terrible things Mrs. Brennan had posted about them, about their parents, about the school. Each revelation seemed to hit her like a physical blow, her face going paler with every accusation. I don't know what you're talking about. Mrs. Brennan's voice had lost its authority. Those are fake. Someone's lying. They have timestamps, a girl near the window said. And your profile picture. And your name. Where did you even get these? Mrs. Brennan looked around the room like she was searching for the source, but everyone was too busy reading through the post to pay attention to her panic. My phone buzzed in her hand. She'd been holding it this entire time, forgotten in the chaos. She looked down at the screen, and I saw the moment she realized what had happened. Her expression shifted from confusion to horror as she read the same screenshots everyone else was seeing, the same damning posts she'd written, now compiled and distributed to her entire class. This is a violation of privacy, she said weakly. Like reading my texts out loud wasn't. I stood up, my voice steady. You put all of this online yourself. We just made sure people actually saw it. The classroom printer suddenly whirred to life in the corner, starting to spit out pages. Mrs. Brennan spun toward it, watching as sheet after sheet emerged, each one showing a different screenshot of her posts, her words, her cruelty, all documented in hard copy for anyone to see. Students rushed toward the printer, grabbing the pages as they came out. Someone started reading aloud from one of the printouts. Posted 3 weeks ago. Some students are just wastes of space. No amount of teaching can fix stupid. The student looked up at Mrs. Brennan. You really think that about us? That was taken out of context, Mrs. Brennan stammered. What context makes it okay to call students wastes of space? Noah's voice cut through the noise. He was holding his phone up, showing another post. Or to say you hate your job. Or that teaching is for people with no better options? More voices joined in. A cascade of hurt and anger as students found themselves in her posts, found their struggles mocked, their efforts dismissed. The room filled with the sound of betrayal being recognized, of trust being shattered in real time. Mrs. Brennan backed toward her desk, my phone still clutched in her hand. This is completely inappropriate. You're all going to be in serious trouble for this. For what? I asked. Sharing posts you made public? You put this stuff online yourself. We just made sure everyone knew what you really thought of them. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The printer kept going, churning out more pages, more evidence, more proof that the teacher who'd spent years in a position of authority had spent just as long abusing it in ways we'd never seen, until now. Someone knocked on the classroom door. Through the window, I could see Mr. Phillips, the history teacher from next door, his face concerned. Everything okay in here? I heard shouting. Mrs. Brennan rushed to the door, opening it just wide enough to block his view of the chaos inside. Everything's fine. Just a classroom discussion that got a bit heated. Doesn't sound fine. Mr. Phillips tried to look past her. Do you need help? No, thank you. I have it under control. Mrs. Brennan's voice was strained, artificial. She closed the door before he could respond, leaning against it for a moment like she was holding back a flood. But the flood was already inside. Students kept reading through the posts, their phones lighting up with each new revelation. The printer finally stopped, leaving a stack of pages on the counter that someone had already started distributing around the room. You said my mom was an entitled witch who needed to learn her place, a girl named Rachel said, holding up her phone. She came to you about my grades because I was struggling, and this is how you talked about her online? Mrs. Brennan turned from the door, her professional mask cracking completely. I was venting. Teachers are allowed to vent. Not about students by name. Preston stood up, his face flushed. Not where everyone can see it. You humiliated us. I never meant for students to... Mrs. Brennan stopped herself, realizing the admission. Those posts were for my friends. They were private. Your whole profile is public. I finally spoke again, my voice cutting through the noise. Every single post. Anyone could see them. You just never thought anyone would look. Mrs. Brennan's eyes locked onto mine, and I saw the exact moment she understood. Understood that I'd orchestrated this. That the girl she'd humiliated 2 days ago had spent the time since then building this trap. You did this. Her voice was barely a whisper. You went through my Facebook and looked at your public posts. I finished. The ones you put online yourself, the ones where you called your students stupid and worthless, where you mocked parents and complained about how much you hate teaching. I don't hate teaching. Really? Noah held up one of the printed pages. Because this post from last month says, and I quote, teaching is a dead-end career for people who couldn't make it in the real world, stuck babysitting other people's brats while my own life falls apart. The room went silent. Even the students who'd been whispering stopped to stare at Mrs. Brennan. That was a bad day, she said weakly. I was upset about something else. You have a lot of bad days, apparently. Tiffany shuffled through the printed pages. Here's another one from 2 weeks ago. If I have to explain photosynthesis one more time to Tiffany C., I'm going to lose it. Some kids shouldn't breed. That's me. You wrote that about me. Tiffany's voice broke on the last word, and several students moved closer to her, offering silent support. The solidarity in the room had shifted completely. No longer students versus student, but students versus the teacher who'd been mocking them behind their backs. Mrs. Brennan looked around, seeming to realize for the first time how badly this had spiraled. Listen, all of you. This is being taken out of context. Social media isn't. There's no context that makes this okay. Preston's voice was steady now, angry but controlled. You're supposed to be our teacher. You're supposed to help us learn, not tear us down online. And the stuff about your husband? Someone called from the back. About your marriage falling apart? That's what you share on a public profile where students can see it? Mrs. Brennan's face flushed red. My personal life is none of your business. Then why did you make it public? I asked. Why post about hating your husband where anyone can read it? Why complain about your job where your students' parents can see? She had no answer, just stood there while the weight of her own choices crushed down on her. The door opened again. This time it was Principal Harper, her expression stern. Mr. Phillips must have called her despite Mrs. Brennan's assurance assurances that everything was fine. Mrs. Brennan, can I speak with you in the hallway? I'm in the middle of class. Now please. Principal Harper's tone left no room for argument. Mrs. Brennan glanced at me one more time, her expression a mixture of anger and something that looked like fear, before following the principal into the hallway. Through the door's window, I could see Principal Harper holding one of the printed pages, her face growing progressively more concerned as she read. The classroom erupted in whispers the moment the door closed. Did you really find all that online? She actually wrote that stuff herself? I can't believe she's been talking about us like that. Zoe slipped into the classroom from the hallway, her laptop bag over her shoulder and a satisfied smile on her face. She sat down next to me. The principal has all the files now, she whispered. Every post, every screenshot, all of it sent directly to her email about 5 minutes ago. You planned that too? Obviously. Zoe glanced toward the hallway where Mrs. Brennan and Principal Harper were still talking. She needed to see what kind of teacher she has working here, what kind of person she's been letting influence students. Through the window, I watched Mrs. Brennan's posture change from defensive to defeated. Principal Harper was showing her something on her phone, probably the screenshots, and Mrs. Brennan's face had gone from red to pale white. She's done, Zoe said quietly. No way the principal lets this slide. Not with this many students involved, not with parents who can see all of this. As if on cue, several students' phones buzzed again. Someone had apparently started sharing the screenshots beyond just our class, sending them to friends in other grades, other classes. The news was spreading through the school like wildfire. My sister just texted me from her classroom, a girl near the window said. She wants to know if this is real. It's real, Preston confirmed, holding up his phone. All of it. She really thinks we're worthless. The classroom door opened and Principal Harper stepped inside alone. Mrs. Brennan was nowhere to be seen. Class, I need you all to pack up your things and head to the library for the rest of the period. Mrs. Brennan won't be finishing today's lesson. Is she in trouble? Someone asked. Principal Harper's expression remained neutral. That's not something I can discuss with students, but I want you all to know that this situation is being taken very seriously. If anyone has concerns about anything that was shared today, please feel free to come speak with me or your guidance counselor. We packed up in relative silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over everyone. As I walked past the principal, she stopped me. Can you stay back for a moment? My stomach dropped. This was it, the part where I got in trouble for orchestrating everything. Zoe gave me a worried look, but I nodded for her to go ahead. When the classroom emptied, Principal Harper closed the door and turned to face me. I know you were involved in distributing those screenshots. I didn't deny it. They were public posts. Anyone could have found them, but you're the one who made sure everyone did find them. Principal Harper didn't sound angry, just tired. Do you understand how serious this is? Yes. Do you also understand why Mrs. Brennan's behavior is completely unacceptable? I looked up surprised. You're not mad at me? I didn't say that. Principal Harper sat on the edge of a desk. What you did was disruptive. It caused chaos. And there were probably better ways to handle this situation. Like what? Reporting it and hoping someone would listen? The words came out sharper than I intended. She grabbed my phone 2 days ago and read my private messages out loud to humiliate me. She's been talking about students like we're garbage for months. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. I care. Principal Harper's voice was firm. And I will be addressing Mrs. Brennan's conduct. But that doesn't mean your method was appropriate either. We stared at each other for a long moment. Am I suspended? I asked finally. No, but you're on notice. She stood up. If you ever have concerns about a teacher's behavior again, you come to me first. Understand? Yes, ma'am. Now go to the library with everyone else. She opened the door. And take your phone with you this time. I grabbed my bag and headed for the hallway, passing Mrs. Brennan's desk on the way out. Her lesson plan was still sitting there, abandoned mid-lesson. Her coffee mug was still full. Her life had been interrupted mid-sentence, just like she'd interrupted mine 2 days ago when she'd grabbed my phone. The difference was I'd actually deserved to fight back. The library was chaos when I walked in. Students from our biology class had already spread the news to everyone else there, and now phones were being passed around, screenshots shared, voices rising in disbelief. Is this for real? She actually posted all of this? My older brother had her 3 years ago. He's going to lose it when he sees this. I found Zoe in the corner, her laptop still open, monitoring the spread. She looked up when I sat down. Principal Harper talked to you? Yeah, I'm not suspended, but she wasn't exactly thrilled. I set my bag down. Where's Mrs. Brennan? No idea. She disappeared after the principal pulled her out. Zoe turned her screen toward me. But look at this. The screenshots are already on the school's anonymous forum. Someone posted them with the headline, "Teacher exposed for trashing students online." I scrolled through the comments. Hundreds of them already, most from students sharing their own negative experiences with Mrs. Brennan. Stories about her snapping at kids who asked questions, humiliating students who got answers wrong, making sarcastic comments that left people feeling small. She's been doing this for years, I said quietly. And nobody stopped her because she was the authority figure. Zoe closed her laptop. Until now. Preston walked over, holding one of the printed pages. Hey, I just wanted to say thank you. I looked up surprised. For what? For doing what the rest of us were too scared to do. He gestured at the page. I've known she didn't like me for months, but seeing it written out like this, seeing proof that it wasn't just in my head, it helps. Weird as that sounds. It's not weird, Zoe said. Sometimes you need validation that you're not crazy. Other students started approaching, some to thank us, others just to talk about their own experiences. Tiffany came over with red eyes, clearly having been crying, but she managed a small smile. I always thought I was stupid, that I was the problem. She wiped her face, but it was her. She made me feel that way on purpose. You're not stupid, I told her. She just had no business being a teacher. The library monitor kept trying to get everyone to quiet down, but it was pointless. The energy in the room was electric, a mixture of vindication and anger and relief all tangled together. Noah appeared next to my table, hands in his pockets. Can we talk for a second? My stomach flipped. Sure. We walked to a quieter corner, away from the growing crowd around Zoe's laptop. That was pretty intense, Noah said. Yeah. I mean, what you did. Exposing exposing her like that. He leaned against a bookshelf. That took guts. Or stupidity, I'm still figuring out which. He laughed. Definitely guts. She had it coming. He paused, then added, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry about the other day. When she read your text out loud, that was messed up. It's fine. It's not, though. She violated your privacy to embarrass you, and nobody said anything. We all just sat there and let it happen. He met my eyes, including me. I didn't know what to say. The moment stretched between us, awkward and honest at the same time. Anyway, Noah continued, I wanted to ask if you wanted to hang out sometime, outside of school. Like, actually hang out, not just because we're in the same class. The words took a second to process. You mean like, yeah, like a date, I guess, if you want. Every sarcastic comeback I'd rehearsed in my head for a moment like this evaporated. I just nodded. Okay, yeah, I'd like that. His smile was genuine, reaching his eyes in a way that made my chest feel tight. Cool, I'll text you later. He walked away before I could overthink it, leaving me standing there trying to process that the worst week of my life had somehow just ended with my crush asking me out. Zoe appeared at my elbow. Did Noah just, yeah, because you exposed a terrible teacher? Apparently. That's the most chaotic way to get a date I've ever heard. She grinned. I'm weirdly proud of you. The library door opened and Principal Harper walked in, her expression serious. The room quieted almost immediately. I need everyone's attention, she said, her voice carrying across the space. I want to address what happened in Mrs. Brennan's class this morning. Students shifted, waiting. I felt eyes turn toward me and Zoe. First, I want to be clear that the distribution of those screenshots, while disruptive, revealed conduct that is completely unacceptable for any teacher at this school. Principal Harper's tone was measured but firm. Mrs. Brennan has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation into her social media activity and classroom conduct. Murmurs spread through the library. Administrative leave meant serious consequences, meant this wasn't just going to blow over. Second, I want to remind all students that if you ever feel mistreated, disrespected, or targeted by a teacher, there are proper channels to report those concerns. Coming to administration with your complaints is always the right first step. She looked directly at me when she said it, and I got the message loud and clear. But she didn't call me out by name, didn't single me out for punishment, just made her point and moved on. Third, and most importantly, I want you all to know that you have a right to feel safe and respected in your classrooms. What was revealed today shows a pattern of unprofessional behavior that will be addressed. She paused. Mrs. Brennan will not be returning to teach any of her current classes. A substitute will be taking over for the remainder of the semester. The library erupted in whispers and reactions, not celebrating exactly, but definitely relieved. Principal Harper held up a hand for quiet. If anyone needs to speak with a counselor about anything that happened today, or anything related to Mrs. Brennan's conduct in the past, please let the front office know. We're here to support you. She scanned the room one more time. That's all. Try to make the rest of your day productive. She left, and the moment the door closed, the library exploded in conversation. She's actually gone. They're investigating her? My parents are going to flip when I tell them. I looked at Zoe, who was typing furiously on her laptop. What are you doing? Making sure the school board gets copies of everything too, just in case the investigation needs extra motivation. She hit send with a satisfied click. There, done. You're terrifying. I prefer thorough. She closed her laptop. Besides, if we're going to take down a toxic teacher, we might as well do it right. Preston came back over with a group of students, all holding their phones. We're thinking about writing a formal complaint about Mrs. Brennan's classroom behavior over the years. Will you add your name? I looked at the faces around me. Students who'd been made to feel small, stupid, worthless by someone who was supposed to be helping them learn. Students who'd finally found their voice because someone had given them proof they weren't imagining things. Absolutely. By the end of the day, over 40 students had signed the formal complaint. Parents started calling the school demanding answers. The school board announced an emergency meeting for the following week, and Mrs. Brennan's Facebook account disappeared entirely, deleted in what was probably a panicked attempt at damage control that came way too late. I walked out of school that afternoon with Zoe, both of us exhausted but weirdly energized. Think she'll get fired? Zoe asked. Hope so, she definitely earned it. Good. Zoe bumped my shoulder. And hey, you got a date out of it, so there's that. I laughed, pulling out my phone to check for messages. Sure enough, there was a text from Noah asking if I was free this weekend. I responded before I could second guess myself, and his reply came back almost immediately with a time and place. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from Preston. Thank you for speaking up. Seriously. Then Tiffany. You're amazing. I'm so glad you did this. Then Rachel. Then others. A stream of messages from classmates who finally felt like they'd been heard. You know what the best part of all this is? Zoe asked as we reached the parking lot. What? She tried to humiliate you for having a crush. And now you're going on a date with him while she's facing an investigation that could end her career. Zoe grinned. That's poetic justice right there. Mrs. Brennan never came back to school. The investigation confirmed everything the screenshots had shown, and then some. Years of inappropriate comments, complaints from parents that had been brushed aside, a pattern of targeting students she deemed difficult or slow. She resigned before they could officially fire her, but the damage was done. Her name was permanently attached to the scandal, and every school in the district knew exactly why she'd left. The substitute who took over our biology class was younger, patient, and actually seemed to enjoy teaching. Tiffany started raising her hand more in class. Preston stopped wearing his defensive scowl. The whole atmosphere shifted, like we could finally breathe without waiting for the next cutting comment. Noah and I went on that date, then another. Then it stopped being dates and started being just us, together, without the weight of secrets or humiliation hanging over it. Zoe got student council to implement a new anonymous reporting system for teacher misconduct. She called it the Brennan Protocol just to twist the knife, and I loved her for it. As for me, I learned that sometimes standing up for yourself means getting messy, means taking risks, means refusing to be small just because someone with power wants you to be. Mrs. Brennan had tried to teach me a lesson about knowing my place. Instead, she taught me something better, that speaking truth to power is always worth it, especially when that power is being abused. And honestly, best education I ever got.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your favorite part in the comments. See you in the next one.